So I will get to Dial, but I just want to make a note of James Mangold and the announcement that he may be doing a Star Wars film. There were actually three films announced, and his is one of them. And very fascinating idea that he will look at the birth of the Jedi. So that's very, very fascinating. So let me get to Dial, and I'll get back around to the Star Wars film and make some comments there. So what is going on with Dial itself? Well, now we're getting a bit of a better idea of who the antagonists are, because before it was really kind of clumsy unless you were very attentive. You know that they're kind of Nazis, but what exactly is their story? What is going on? I hope it's not going to be the time travel rumor, but apparently they want access to the Dial to correct Hitler's mistakes, whatever that means exactly. And Indiana has to stop them from getting the Dial, and we've got Phoebe helping him out. I will say on the negative side, Harrison just sounds a little weird, and of course his movements are now a little funny. He's just too old. You just gotta bear that in mind. It wasn't too distracting, but in certain places, like the dialogue, it just didn't feel it had the flow or banter. Even with The Force Awakens, this feels kind of just very disjointed. On the plus side, though, the effects and the overall look a lot better than before. Before it did feel that they were leaning too much into the CGI. This feels relatively more balanced. So overall, this looks far more realistic than before. It still looks like it needs a little bit more work, but it does look much better than before. That said, with Indiana, you have to try to combine action and comedy. This feels like a work in progress. They haven't quite perfected what they want to do with the story, and this probably isn't the best story to do with Indiana per se, but again, given Harrison's age, and again, his acting is usually kind of disengaged, I think the performances and the main story will be fine. And I found the balance between the Easter eggs and the actual story were pretty good in this trailer. They gave a lot away, of course, with the horse riding and the motorcycles. And unfortunately, I know a little bit about this period, and have actually studied Nazis in the post-war period. Some of this rings true, some of it does not ring true. It is mainly a fantasy, and where the old friends come in, I don't know. And people are already speculating how Phoebe is related to Indiana or not related. I really don't care about that aspect. If she takes over, whatever. I just want to make sure that this last adventure is pretty good. And that gets us back to the Star Wars film, because this thing had a lot of problems in terms of the behind-the-scenes production. And again, a lot of these could be rumors. James Mangold has denied that there were that many reshoots or delays. That's fine. I have no issue with that. But I think what's impressive is, despite all the problems, it's getting to us. If he says he's going to do a Star Wars film, unlike these other announcements, it looks like it will actually happen. And it is fascinating to look at the very early history of the Jedi that's not really constrained or too mindful of the canonical issues with even the sequel trilogy or the prequels, where they sort of try to fit in with the original trilogy, but we're a bit all over the place. It's just not a very cohesive story with Star Wars in terms of the main films, giving him a lot of liberty to go really early in the time period to define the Force and the Jedi, and perhaps the early history of the Sith, I think is very fascinating. He's a really great director, and I'm going to be totally honest, I want to support this film to get to that film. So if this can get us to that good Star Wars film, I'm very excited. Qualified thumbs up. Still a few issues. Hopefully they'll sharpen the special effects before we see it on screen, but it looks good, but probably not the best Indiana film. I think Crusade will probably still be the best, but if this can at least be a respectable entry, I'll be very satisfied. And there we are with Dial of Destiny. It's not getting that much attention, but at least the fans are very receptive, and I do think Harrison is putting in an effort, but again, he is getting up there, so it's going to look a little weird.